Development has been working with the Supreme Court and the Justice Sector Coordinating Council to be able to put uh, uh, rape crisis centers in the different parts of the country where we have justice zones. So this specifically addresses not only awareness, raising awareness, but also being able to provide that shelter and that safe space for women that they can go to whenever they suffer from violence against them. And all the three branches are cooperating with each other towards this end. The fourth approach is to support a gender equal economy through macroeconomic fiscal strategies, which Chair Ermi has spoke about a while ago. It's a best practice, and a lot of the other our ASEAN neighbors really look up to the Philippines because of the GAD budget that is legislated, and this is actually also required to be monitored by our constitutional bodies like the COA, the CHR, independent constitutional bodies that are also mandated by law to ensure that the 5% GAD budget is actually observed and implemented by government agencies. So we also have an enhanced women's access to resources that promote gender equality and support victim survivors of violence through our social protection programs in the DSWD. We have cash transfers for mothers. We have the AICS that is available to victim survivors of VOW. And aside from that, we have sustainable livelihood programs for victims of VOW. Lastly, and I think is very, very important, it's to cultivate a cultural shift. So even if we have all these pieces of legislation, we have the judiciary coming up with landmark decisions to protect the rights of women, these all help to build a counterculture of how we view women and the role of women in society. But this should also be reinforced by the media, and slowly there is a shift. We're creating a shift slowly. Just like how you observed before in the 80s, I grew up in the 80s, there was no such thing as positive parenting, but now it's the norm. It's the cultural norm now, where parents really observe gentle parenting and breastfeeding is pushed. But the same thing with violence against women and with how we view women. And that's where our award comes in, the award that the DSWD received during the conference. We received a Champion for Change in Breaking Stereotypes award. And this is because of our Cash for Care program that we have implemented. But this is only a limited program. It's only during disasters that we give cash grants to women for the care that they provide to children during times of disasters. And we are exploring to expand this Cash for Care program to make it not just in disasters. Because what we want to do is to recognize that the care that women give to children and to taking care of the household, domestic work that women do, should be compensated. It is compensable work. Because as we view it now, it's a responsibility, it's an obligation for the mother. That is how our culture views it. But if you look at it, the mothers are doing hard work. They are sacrificing their careers to provide care to the children and take care of the household. And that should be supported by the government. But of course, we're doing that through it's still in the exploratory stage. We're still developing the concept, and we're trying to link it with the 4Ps, but giving this cash grant to the non-4Ps beneficiaries, since the 4Ps beneficiaries already receive a lot of cash grants, and we wanted to tap unemployed mothers who, this is just at the concept stage, unemployed mothers who are non-4Ps beneficiaries that provide care to their children. So we're still figuring out through studies and working with the PCW to determine what the right amount of compensation would be. And this is in an effort to create that cultural shift towards recognizing the care work and domestic work that mothers do or render to be compensable. This also has hits another goal, which is to give women financial independence. A lot of women who are trapped in violent homes, who are victims of abuse in their homes by their partners, oftentimes feel that they have no option but to stay in that relationship or in that violent situation because they do not have the financial independence to leave the relationship. They fear for how they will take care of their children because they have no income. But if we push through with this Cash for Care program, they would be able to receive a steady stream of income. They can save, and they would at least have that option to leave the relationship. The DSWD will support them in the process by providing them with opportunities for livelihood as well. So, aside from creating a counterculture, this also promotes economic empowerment of women, especially those who are trapped in violent relationships and in domestic violence. So that is also the topic that we discussed in our bilateral meeting with the National Commission on Violence Against Women of Indonesia and with Women of the South Speak Out of Indonesia. They were very interested to know about our unpaid care program or Cash for Care program, and we talked about it as well as the other means that the government can support care work for women. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yusek Villar, for sharing the sessions in which DSWD participated in and in sharing the legislation and initiatives on Ating Pao, together with the proposed Cash for Care initiatives. We have a request from the Dole, if we can invite them to share a few words.
So, good morning again. I am Grace from the Department of Labor and Employment, and we'd like, of course, to congratulate PCW for leading the Philippine delegation, and the rest of the Philippine delegation we'd also like to thank for participating in guiding also the team. So, the Department of Labor and Employment was represented by Assistant Secretary Ami Reyes, and I was with her. And we highlighted in one of the roundtable discussions on decent work, women entrepreneurship, labor rights, that there is an interconnection between labor rights, decent work, and women's rights, as was highlighted by Thailand in the Asia Pacific Conference. No, women's rights are human rights, and we know that part of human rights are labor rights. So we insist and we affirm that women are equally entitled to labor rights, including labor standards, occupational safety and health standards, rights to collective bargaining, freedom of association, the rights of girls against the worst forms of child labor, and the rights of women against slave labor. And we also highlighted the need to also look at emerging concerns, as what mentioned by Chair Ermi a while ago, and also the team, that women are experiencing issues and challenges in the digital era. We know that there is a digital divide against women. And what we want to do is to basically build their capacities in order for them to compete and to be more employable in this digital era. So we're looking at strengthening our programs and initiatives on women in STEM, on digital tools, productivity for women in this digital era, and also financing for women-led businesses, especially in the micro, small, and medium industries or sectors, and of course, digital financing for women. And we participate, the Department of Labor and Employment with DENR and with the Climate Change Commission also participated in the recently concluded Conference of Parties of the UN Convention on Climate Change. So we insisted that because in the last year a program was adopted, and that program referred to just transition for all. And we insisted that the just transition program of the Conference of the Parties should include decent work and should also promote human resource development and as well as labor rights. And we insisted also that labor rights are for all, and decent work is for all, not just men but women and all of us. So these are the things that we highlighted during the roundtable, one of the roundtables in the Asia Pacific recently held Asia Pacific Conference in Thailand. And so also in closing, we would like to highlight that the Department of Labor and Employment is also part of the government efforts to push for initiatives under the social protection floor, so that we will ensure that there are social safety nets in cases of calamities and economic distress for all, including women. And for the Department of Labor and Employment, we provide cash transfers, emergency employment assistance, and livelihood, and including skills development for women and for all. So these are the things that we highlighted during our intervention in the Asia Pacific Conference.
Thank you very much, Deputy Executive Director Grace, for sharing the engagement. Dolly has participated in the conference. Now we will proceed to the question and answer portion. So this is your opportunity to directly engage with our speakers and the Philippine delegation, as you can see at the side, and learn more about the outcomes and the Philippines' commitment. So kindly raise your hand if you have any question. Please state your name, organization, and who the question is for. Yes, ma'am, over there in black.
Hello po, I'm Aubrey Nasante po from Business World. Question lang po dun sa nakalagay dito. Currently, 246 government agencies are using their GAD budget. Pero meron pa pong 109 agencies are encouraged to meet the standards of effective. What do you think po yung bakit sila naglalag sa utilization po ng GAD budget? Thank you.
Kasi po maraming component yung GAD budgeting. So you prepare your GAD plan. Sometimes your GAD plan is good, you meet the 5% minimum, so you go. But when it comes to implementation, hindi po kayo makapagbigay ng proof that you really spent the amount that you are claiming to have been spent, then that does not count. So yung mga ganun pong klaseng agencies, we need to give them more interventions so that they learn how to document their expenditures, because they are also being audited by the Commission on Audit. The integrity of the expenditures are being audited by the Commission on Audit. So, ang dahilan po doon kadalasan, ito nga po gusto namin daig sa DBM hindi po kasi permanent positions ang naghahawak ng mga gender. Mabuti po siguro sa Department of Social Services and Development, Social Welfare and Development, kasi Marami silang staff, pero karamihan din po sa mga agencies, mga contract of service, yung mga holders, tapos kung nakakuha sila ng magandang trabaho, pinapirate na sila, tapos naiiwan yung na wala namang sumasalo. So, lack of documentation, lack of evidences. Pag nagpalit po ng staff, lack of capacity naman po ang nagiging problema. Matagal po kasi matutunan yan dahil complex din po yung gender planning and budgeting and gender accomplishment reporting. Isa pa po siguro, minsan, yung kanilang mga heads of offices, wala po sila talagang passion. Kasi in gender development, you really need commitment. If you are just complying, ganun po magiging resulta. Mataas ang promises, pero ang performance mababa. Kaya kami po, kung mabibigyan lang din kami ng mga sapat na staff, talaga pong mamano-manuhin namin silang puntahan para lang tumaas dahil may feedback naman po talaga na napapakinabangan po talaga ang God budget ng mga programa para sa kababaihan. Ngayon po, lumapit na po kami sa Commission on Human Rights because the Commission on Human Rights is the gender ombud machinery of the Philippines. So meron po kaming mga pagkasunduan ng mga strategies para mapalakas ang implementation ng God budget at the level of utilization.
Thank you po. Clarify ko lang po ulit. Ito pong currently, does it mean po, this year po, di ba? As of
2023.
2023.
Kasi po, you need 1 year to spend and make a report. We cannot prepare the report for 2024 because it's not yet finished.
So, outlook lang po for this year, for 2024 and 2025, what should be done po? Aside po yung sa pag-reach out nyo po sa DBM about yung pag-hold po ng mga, yung nag-hawak po ng God budget should be those in permanent positions. Ano po yung outlook and what should be done?
Kung po tatanungin niyo, because I was with the Philippine Commission on Women for 20 years before I left, and I came back after 22 years. So at that time, nakita ko po na malaki ang magagawa kung ang ating women's movement malakas. Kung yung mga kababaihan po sa local level ay mayroong connection sa local government units, magbibigay po sila ng kanilang proposals, sasabihin nila may pondo naman po kayo para sa kababaihan. Pwede bang pondohan ninyo ito? Kami ang mag-deliver ng result. So it is women working for their own empowerment and advancement with the support of the government. We tried that before women and government working together. So yun po yung nakikita kong isa. Pangalawa po siguro, talagang kailangan palakasin namin yung aming interagency coordination, yung local government units, DBM, yung po mga ibang ahensya natin na nakakarating sa baba. Dahil kami po, wala po kami. We are only like 89 personnel in the office. We don't have a subnational office except for the NMFO, the Northern Mindanao Field Office, which is a very small office just to test how it is to have a presence at the subnational level. Kulang po din ang aming resources.
Okay po. Last question na po, sorry po sa pagkatuman. Yung last question ko po, paano po ika-characterize yung sinabi dito na hindi po nila na-meet yung standards of effective. Ibig sabihin po ba, let's say, may ceiling po kung ilang yung amount po yung magagastos ng mga agencies natin. Ibig po ba hindi po nila na-meet? Underutilized po ba yung budget na binigay?
Hindi lang po sa hindi na-meet. Sobrang hindi po nila na-meet. Kasi halos kalahati lang po ng ng allocation. Iba po yung allocation kasi expenditure. Expenditure nila halos 50% lang. Sana po man lang mga 75%. Kasi sayang po naka-allocate na para sa babae na yun Hindi pa nila ginamit, so sayang yung opportunity.
Thank you po.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions po? Ma'am?
Follow up lang po dun sa, by the way, Cathy Cruz.
Good morning po sa lahat. Cathy Cruz po from DizXL, ang ating Katipunan every Sunday. And tuklasin natin sa Katipunan channel. Follow up lang po dun sa question niya. I have my own question din.
ano-ano pong mga agency yung hindi? Kasi para hindi naman tayo unfair dun sa nagmi-meet, di ba? Sabi nyo nga 50% ang kumbaga hindi nagagamit na pondo, which is allocated na yan sabi nyo nga kanina. Pero bakit hindi sila nagagamit? At anong mga agency yung hindi nag-function? And medyo isang punto pa, kasi I've been in the government for, dati po akong empleyado ng gobyerno, 20 years po ako sa serbisyo. And I know na kapag alam ko po bawal na humawak ng pondo ang isang hindi permanent ang status. Kaya nagtataka po ako bakit ngayon pwede yung ganon. Dati po, nung time ko, hindi pwede yung ganon. Yun po yung alam ko So, point of clarification lang yun. You can answer my first question, then later on I have second question.
I will answer the point about COS being allowed to handle funding. Actually, pang operation po nito, kagaya po ng ordinary operation sa government Hindi po sila humahawak ng pera. Sila po humahawak ng programa. So, ang kanila pang sistema ng accounting at saka budgeting, yun po ang sistema na humahawak. Kasi sa bawat ahensya po ng gobyerno, meron pong gender focal point system. So, yung bawat representative ng isang unit, ng isang department, ay may representasyon doon. So, kung ano yung ginagawa nilang function sa kanilang sariling unit, yun din po ang ginagawa nila sa focal point system. Kung statistics ang kanilang pinanggalingan na unit, statistics din po ang ambag nila doon sa work ng focal point system. So, ang humahawak pa rin po ng pera, yun pa rin pong budget office nila. Yung pong isa ninyong tanong po, ano nga po ulit yung una-una dito?
Ano po yung mga ahensya?
Ayun, kaya mahirap pa
na hindi po kasi sa compliance. Hindi nami-meet yung standards po.
Kasi po hanggang ngayon, may pagka-conciliatory po ang approach namin. Ayaw pa rin po namin na magkaroon ng tension yung relasyon namin sa kanila dahil naniniwala kami na kaya nga po nag-submit yan ng proposed budget nila at saka plan. Kasi may intention po sila na mag-cooperate at mag-comply. Ang problema lang, ang sistema din po ay limitado din po ang pagpapagalaw sa mga taong may commitment. Kahit masyado silang committed, kung yung sistema hindi sila sinusuportahan, for example, kung wala naman silang monitoring and evaluation system na malinaw, na siyang nagbibigay ng data sa kanilang paggamit ng kanilang God budget, kahit committed yung tao, kahit permanent or casual siya, hindi pa rin niya magagawa Kaya dapat talaga ito, the whole of government approach, the whole of department approach. Siguro po alam ito ng DSWD kasi ganun po sila Pasensya na po, hindi namin masasabi ngayon. Pero, kung interesado po kayo, i-email po namin sa inyo.
Interesado po ako. Parang mabuo po yung
hindi po
larawan
namin
ng story.
wala po talaga kaming dala ngayon.
Ayun, may umupila. Sige, labas na yan.
Magbigay ka lang na example.
Yung division po namin, yung in charge of yung review and endorsement of God plans and budgets of agencies. So the other month, we just conferred with the Commission on Human Rights because nga of yung mga kakulangan ng mga ahensya sa pag-fulfill ng kanilang obligation based on the Magna Carta of Women to submit their God plans and budgets. So, so far, for 2024, kasi yun yung pinaka-latest na yung mga hindi nag-submit ng God budgets. Pero for now, ang sasabihin ko po ay number lang. Sorry. There were 76 agencies na hindi nag-submit ng kanilang God plans and budgets for 2024 for various reasons. So, itong mga to, sinulatan pa po namin. So, may chance pa po sila to explain themselves. So, hindi ko po muna sila ipagkanulo kasi may chance pa sila. But later, once nakapag-explain na po at kung ano yung depende doon sa explanation, kasi we told them that we will submit the name of your agencies to the God Ombud. Kasi obligasyon naman po ni PCW na sabihin sa kanila na hindi ninyo na-comply yung inyong obligasyon sa Magna Carta of Women. So,
May deadline po ba kayo?
may deadline po kami binigay sa kanila. Hindi ko po alam kung na-reach na yun. But I hope within, hanggang December yan. December na. So, yun po. Basta 76 for 2024, 76 agencies have not submitted their GAD plans and budgets.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Natutuwa naman po ako kasi nakikita po natin na ang kababaihan po ngayon ay binibigyan po ng lakas, pagkakataon at lahat po ng paraan. No? Lalo na yung mga kawani natin sa mga ahensya ng gobyerno. Pero ako po, kung sa labas po ako titingin, kung karaniwang tao po ako, minsan hindi nyo po maitatatwa at maikakaila na naaabuso po ang maraming kababaihan sa hirap po ng buhay ngayon at mataas na bilihin, kuryente at tubig. Pigit mata lahat ng paraan gumagawa o ginagawa ng babae para mabuhay, mapag-aral at mabigyan ng maayos na kinabukasan ang kanilang mga anak. Sa tingin niyo po ba sapat na yung kamulatan na ginagawa o pagmumulat ng karapatan ng kababaihan o mas dapat na tugunan ng pamahalaan ang tunay na suliranin ng bayan o ng bansa? Yan ay ang mataas na bilihin at public utilities na kumakain o kumukuha ng malaking porsyento ng kinikita ng isang manggagawa, babae man yan o lalaki. Dahil po sa kahirapan, sa totoo lang ma'am, din nyo naman po siguro yan ikakaila, na nasisira po ang basic unit ng ating pamilya in terms of morality, culture, dahil kinakailangan magtrabaho, hindi lang ng tatay ngayon, nakatulad din tulad po dati, na pati babae ngayon kailangan kumayod. Regardless po kung ano, kaya minsan ang tanong po, pagka kwentuhan po mga kababaihan, paano mo ba kinakategorya ang isang pag-aabuso? Sapat na ba yung physical, mental, o dahil sa nangyayari at mga serbisyong binibigay sa atin ng pamahalaan? Thank you.
Salamat po sa katanungan at na-touch ninyo yung talagang macro perspective of the situation on where women are in. Paghihirap po sa buhay, hindi lang yung paghihirap, paghihikahos. Sobrang paghihirap na wala ng option ang kababaihan ay nagtutulak upang ang kanilang dignidad ay voluntaryo nilang surrender para makabuhay ng pamilya. Alam po namin yan. At ang kababaihan po ay nagiging vulnerable. Mas vulnerable kaysa sa mahirap lang. Doble po ang kanilang vulnerability kasi nga ang tinatawag nating parang human resource capital nila na abuso dahil sa kahirapan. Siyempre, maganda po sana kung ang ating economic system ay maayos. Pero hindi po yun simple dahil po ang struktura po ng ating ekonomiya ay hindi lang nakasalalay dun sa saan bang sector may kumikita o hindi, kundi dun sa inequities in the distribution of wealth in the country na minana pa po natin ito as a result of colonization. Diba, nag-ituto sila ng mga title ng mga lands, tapos yung mga malalaking ng lands, hanggang ngayon sila pa rin ang may-ari ng mga yon. Kaya siguro yung ibang pangulo natin nag-isip talaga ng mga land reform para po yung pag-equalize ng ating capital, economic capital ay maipatupad. Dahil hanggang di po nangyayari yan, kahit gaano kadami pong income ang mga GDP ang ating ma-raise, hindi naman po pumupunta sa mahihirap So ngayon yung ginagawa ng Department of Social Welfare and Development, napaka-importante kasi yung iba nabubuhay lang talaga para gumawa ng paraan sa kanilang kahirapan. Wala na nga sa kanila minsan ng education eh. Wala na nga silang luxury eh. Kumain na lang basta sila at makaintindi kung ano nangyayari sa buhay nila even if they don't have enough education. So this is a huge problem. Talagang whole of society ang approach natin. Meron naman tayong mga NGOs na tumutulong. Meron din tayong mga development partners na tumutulong. At ang ginagawa po natin, tumutok tayo sa mga innovative approaches. Pag yun ang naging approach natin, malaki ang magiging pagbabago kaysa sa magbigay lamang tayo ng maliliit at sa hiwa-hiwalay na pagtulong. So, hindi ko po yan masasagot ngayon, pero advocacy pa rin po namin at nakikita namin ang ugat ng kahirapan ng Pilipinas at hindi siya gaano natutugunan dahil kagaya rin po yan ng climate change, yung mga nakikinabang sa coal, sa mga nakakalaso sa ating environment, silang ayaw sumuko eh. So it's a struggle between the government and the capitalists and the owners of economic resources. It's an advocacy also on our part kasi advocating po kami that we can not do instant solutions to those problems. Ang gusto lang po namin sana mapigilan yung mga pangyayari na ang kababayan ay masadlak sa pariwara, yung pariwara dahil lang sa kahirapan. So we want economic options for them. Kagaya ng sinasabi kanina na ni Undersecretary na dapat po talaga na ang kababayan ay may option sa buhay. Para hindi sila nagtitiis sa isang relasyon na kahit mapatay na sila sa panggugulpi, hindi pa rin sila alis because they don't have economic base. Kaya doon po sa ating bagong National Action Plan on Ending Violence Against Women, malakas po ang aspeto ng prevention doon. At malakas din po ang aspeto ng economic empowerment para may option yung babae na kung gusto niyang iwanan yung ganong relasyon, umiwas na siya kasi hindi rin naman po productive sa isang pamilya na parating gano'n ang kinakalakihan ng kanilang mga anak dahil pag lumaki yung anak nila, gano'n pa rin pa ulit-ulit po yung cycle of violence. So yung po sinabi kanina ni Undersecretary na cultural transformation of our culture, kami din po ganyan na. Naniniwala kami na wala po tayong issue tungkol sa gender inequalities kung walang cultural issues na nakabaon doon ang patriarchy. Yung inequalities po kasi minana natin yan sa mga Kastila dahil ginamit nila yan as an instrument of control to colonize the Filipinos. So, malayo pong istoryahan yan, pero maganda pong pag-aralan. Dahil nga po, pagkamulat po ang kailangan natin para baguhin natin ang ating sitwasyon eh. Kasi ginamit po nila yung kalalakihan para maging violence sa mga kababaihan, para ang kababaihan ay hindi maging empowered, kagaya nung dinat na nila, because women before the Spaniards came to the Philippines were empowered women, priestesses, holders of treasures of communities, they are healers. So, nagkakaroon po ng violent elimination of empowered women during the period of our history, which was never documented. Pero ang nangyari, nalunsad ang violence against women, and it is not a creation of Filipino men. It is not a fault of Filipino men. Pero kung ipapagpatuloy po natin ngayon yung ganong kaugalian, maniniwala pa rin tayo na ang lalaki ay mas superior, kasalanan na po natin yun. Kasi noon po ang relasyon nila, they know they are different, but they are equal. And their status in society is determined by their contribution to the betterment of each other and of the tribes. So dapat talaga bumalik tayo sa gano'n. Yan po ang kampanya natin.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I'll ask for 2 more questions. Please relate it to the BPMA po.
Good morning po. Naliliwanag ng Philippine One and Yari Pilipinas. Mabase po sa World Health Organization, maabot daw po sa 15 million single parents sa Pilipinas. Then ano po yung mga programa ninyo dito tungkol sa ganitong sitwasyon? Pataas po ang nagiging problema ng mga single parents, including na po yung pagkakakitaan at iba pa. Thank you.
Meron po tayong solo parents law, pero dahil po hindi kami implementors, kung mamarapatin po ng DSWD, ay dahil nasa kanila pa ang implementation noon.
Meron pong programa ang DSWD both in terms of providing assistance, financial assistance through yung existing programs po ng DSWD, whether it's through ACAP or AICS for the solo parents. But meron din pong dinidevelop na programa specifically to provide psychosocial support. So it's a more holistic program that is still being developed by the DSWD for solo parents. Yun po.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
So, yung expanded Solo Parents Welfare Act, so of course meron namang paid parental leave for solo parents, so that's 7 days. So for under a labor inspection program, tinitingnan po yan if establishments are compliant. And we have a recent initiative din po with establishments, with companies, enterprises, for ensuring child care services and child minding, meaning other benefits for women, in order for not only solo parents, no, for women to be able to take care of their children while working po. And also for the enterprise and establishments to provide child care services for women living there.
Secretary, please, before I
Yung programa po na nabanggit ko kanina, sorry sa ibang USEC kasi to, so na-launch na pala siya. It's called Strengthening Opportunities for Lone Parents Program or SOLO program. So, katulad nga po ng sabi ko, it's a parent-child intervention and psychological and emotional support for single parents na programa.
Before I get to the question, sir, I'd like to ask given the emerging trends and issues raised during the ministerial conference, what can your agency commit to do in the next 5 years of the implementation of the Beijing VPA? Anybody can start.
Actually, no, in one of the meetings that I attended with Chair, yung justice is actually not part, Chair, dun sa Beijing conference. But this side event that I attended is more aligned with what we have been doing for the past months doon sa issue of gender and corruption. We wanted to highlight yung abuse of power insofar as sexual corruption is concerned. Kasi lakip din yan, or it's connected also to women issues, because usually it's the women who become victims of sexual corruption. This still is exploratory, as mentioned earlier. Nag-share pa lang kami ng mga insights namin and how the practices of prosecuting it are being done in the different regions in Asia. So from that conference that I attended, there was a commitment to continue discussing it because a lot more stakeholders should participate in that and share in this awareness and in promoting that issue and making it more, let's say, gawing mas malawak ang discussion on sexual corruption. What I can say from that event is that nakita nila how the Philippines is also striving to address these issues even if we don't really have a particular law or legislation that addresses sexual corruption. In fact, what we recognize there is that the different laws address yung different violations and corrupt practices that involve the sexual aspect of that. Yung gusto lang namin ngayon ay pag-usapan, then we will return to that discussion and come up with our own recommendations and hopefully since we have already mapped out the recommendations, we can lobby that here already in our jurisdiction. We have come up with a 6-point recommendation, and we focus on the legislation, public awareness, and reporting mechanisms for these abuses.
Doon pa rin po kami sa ending violence against women. Yun pong prevention on the basis of focusing on behavioral change na gustong-gusto namin yung programa ng DSWD na counseling because it changes the behavior. Meaning to say that even if you are an offender, you have the chance of giving up that violent response to situations. So, gusto namin palakasin yung palawakin hanggang sa grassroots level. Mas maganda po yung wala tayong suliranin kaysa sa tumutugon tayo sa mga suliranin. Ang pangalawa pong gusto namin tutukan ay yung platform of results. Kasi kahit po anong dami ng action ninyo, pag wala po tayo nakikitang results, eh hindi po ako natutuwa doon. Sa tingin ko po, hindi po yan na ang dapat natakbuhin natin. So doon po sa gender budgeting namin, tututukan na po namin yung kuha ng mga report tungkol sa resulta ng paggastos nila ng pera. Dahil ngayon po, makikita ninyo mga reports nila, ganito kadaming taong na-train namin, naggawa kami ng ganitong klaseng infrastructure. Oo nga, pero anong nangyayari sa kababaihan? Gumanda ba ang buhay nila dahil sa pinagagawa at paggagastos natin ng pera? So isa po yun sa aming tututukan, tawag po namin doon ay result-based management in our gender planning and budgeting and reporting. Pangatlo po ay yung po sa grassroots level na sinasabi ko nga na focus. Parang nakakalimutan po tayo eh. Ang talaga pong bumabata ng problema natin sa pamayanan ay yung po mga nasa grassroots level natin. Pero kami po na mga nagpaplano, nandito po kami sa malayo sa kanila. Kaya ipupush pa rin po namin na magkaroon kami ng presence sa subnational level. Kahit hindi po opisina, basta magkaroon lang kami ng presence na matatanong namin. Kahit po network lang with women NGOs, pwede na po yun. And then, of course, the strengthening of the national women's machinery na akala natin napakalaki ng Philippine Commission on Women. Ang amin pong hinaharap, suliranin ng kalahati ng populasyon ng Pilipinas. Ang pinagsisilbihan po namin, ilang libong barangay, ilang libong local government units, state colleges and universities, national government agencies. Napakadami po. Ang mga tao po namin nagsisipag-resign na at nagkakasakit na isa nga po hindi makapunta dito dahil may sakit. So, I would like to come to you later on for support to any bill or any executive order that we will be proposing to strengthen our mechanism. Thank you.
If not, I give the last question.
Ako talaga eh. Good morning, my name is Jay Mate of DCMS Media. Ang question ko lang po, isa lang po, pero isa-summarize ko na lang po para masaya ang Earth. Okay? Okay? Sa ngayon po, sa lahat ng natutunan nyo bilang kayo po ang Philippine delegation po natin sa Beijing Conference nung nakaraang Nobyembre, paano nyo po ito, may time frame po ba? Or paano nyo ito ma-implement sa buong Pilipinas? Lalo na doon sa mga malalayong lugar. At saka, syempre pa po, isama na rin po natin yung umuuso at lumalawak na digitalization. So, paano natin ito mapapakita, mapapalawak at mapapakita at may tutugon sa mga kababaihang Pilipino?
Isa po sa pagbabago na aming tututukan dito sa term ko ay yung pag-focus sa women with intersectional disadvantage. Kasi kahit po sila nasa Manila, kung ang kanilang disadvantage ay sapin-sapin, palagay na natin na matanda na nga siya, wala pa siyang livelihood, siya pa nag-aalaga ng mga apo niya dahil ang kanyang anak ay nagtatrabaho sa abroad, o kaya may kapansanan pa siya. Ang advocacy po namin sa National Anti-Poverty Commission, hanapin, nasan yung mga kababaihang yan? Hindi baling sila ay nasa lungsod, wala sa malayo, pero kailangan alam natin ang location nila dahil meron pang i-introduce ang gobyerno na convergence strategy na yung mga pobre mga location, magko-converge po ang mga programa ng mga pamahalaan at yun ang kanilang dadalhin sama-sama sa isang lokasyon. Pero kung mamimiss po nila yung mga kababaihang may intersectional disadvantage, talo pa rin po tayo. So yun po ang, kahit sa UN, gusto kong humingi ng tulong sa mapping of women with intersectional disadvantage para alam natin gaano sila kadami for purposes of programming, and secondly, where are they located and what type of intersectional disadvantage do they have? Kasi ang ating pong statistics, ang kanila pong collection ng data, basic lang eh. Ilan ang babae, ilan ang lalaki, ilan ang ilay, ilan ganon. Pero yung mga sama-samang disadvantage, hindi na susurvey. Ilan yung mga ganon at nasan sila. So sa tingin ko po, isa yun sa approach natin. Siguro po pangalawa din, tulungan yung mga ahensya na tumututok sa kanila kagaya ng mga Commission on ano ba yun? IDPs, yung mga
Indigenous people.
And CIP, yung mga ganong klaseng komisyon na tumututok doon sa mga kababayan natin na nasa remote localities at napapag-iwanan. Dahil ang sabi nga po ni Presidente, wala tayong iwanan, nobody will be left behind. So kailangan po talaga unahin yun. So ipaliwanag po namin sa kanila na magkaiba ang sitwasyon ng babae at lalaki sa cultural communities. Hindi karapat-dapat na standard approach lang ang kanilang gagamitin dahil kahit po sa kanila meron din violence against women at ang kanila pang experience ng poverty ay mas matindi kaysa sa poverty ng mga komunidad sa ibang lugar. So yun po lang siguro yung intersectional disadvantage, pagkatapos po yung partnering with agencies of the government that are working with those population groups.
Short lang related dun sa sinabi.
I'm so sorry, I really need to close the session, but we have lunch after this. If you have further questions for our panelists, you can ask them directly.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Can we give her a chance and a chance also?
Last lang po. Opo.
2 minutes each.
Dagdag lang doon sa sagot. Dagdag lang kasi I need to highlight also after yung Beijing Regional Conference, yung on the BPFA, nag-cite po ang region, ang Asia Pacific region ng findings based on the reports that the agencies and the countries submitted. No? So may 6 na ways forward. Ito yung priorities na dapat nating tugunan in the next 30 years, another 30 years. So una, mabilisan lang. Yung accelerating gender parity in equal decision making, no? Women in decision making, women in top level positions, putting women at the heart of the inclusive sustainable economic development, so economic empowerment of women, investing in comprehensive gender responsive care, yung unpaid care and domestic work, ending gender-based violence or VAW, no? And then yung panglima, yung tinanong kanina, yung digital gender gap, yung gender digital gap na kailangan nating matugunan din kasi isa to sa mga emerging issues, no? Wala naman to noong 1995. And then number 6, yung involvement ng women in matters of peace and security. So yung 6 na po na yun, yung 6. Ang 6 na yun po yung ating susundan, no? Kung saan tayo patutungo at i-focus. Hindi ibig sabihin na pabayaan natin yung ibang areas of concern, but ito kasi yung nakita, especially at the Asia Pacific region, na tutunguhan natin in the next 30 years. Thank you.
And then, Ma'am Cathy, for the last question.
Opo.
Yung tanong ko lang po, ma'am, gusto ko lang curious lang po ako kasi di ba kailangan parang una ang tanong sa isip ko dun sa huling sinabi po ninyo, nag-quantify na ba natin kung actually ang PSA meron nito ilan ang kababaihan, and I'm sure meron din po sigurong data ang PSA tungkol sa kung sino ba yung walang trabaho, sino ba yung ano. I don't know, ma'am, kung ang PCW ba may close coordination in terms of data with the PSA.
Hello. Ang aming pong basic data talaga na ginagamit PSA. Kasi yun po ang pinaka-credible at official eh. At kung sila man po ay may mga bagong categorization ng data na kinukuha dahil po yun sa amin. Pinakukuha po namin sa kanila, pinapa-disaggregate po namin dahil original data sets po nila hindi disaggregated. Hindi disaggregated kahit doon sa poverty. Pero ngayon po disaggregated by sex na sila, disaggregated by age, by location. At ang gusto po namin sunod nilang disaggregation yun na pong intersectionalities.
Gets ko na. Thank you very much po. So, thank you for participating in our discussion. I would like to invite Ms. Adelina for
Dalilan po.
Thank you so much everyone. I think ang dami nating tinalakay ngayong araw mula sa historical underpinnings ng patriarchy at gender and social inequalities hanggang sa emerging issues na sinabi ni Attorney Grace on digitalization, climate action, at mga emerging issues natin. Just transition, ngayon ay mainit na init pa dahil galing tayo sa COP at hindi natin nakuha ang ating gusto. But we also identified a couple of progresses that we've managed to secure, and the Philippine delegation, Justice Jean, Chair Ermi, and Yusek Emmy, you have really been very steadfast in their commitments across the roundtables in Beijing. So I am Athena, I'm the OIC for UN Women in the Philippines, but I'm actually based in Bangkok. So I was actually there during the regional conference, where at least, I think, 44 governments from 53 states in Asia Pacific were there, over 1,000 participants, with 300 of them being civil society. I would just maybe want to highlight what I feel like across the different speakers that we've managed to have today, they've identified 4 critical areas of work. And of course, we have the 6 priority areas under the Beijing that we'll have to advance, but there are 4 key areas of work. First, Justice Jean has emphasized the need for policy frameworks, because there are things that still need, so we have very strong policies. And as a person sitting in the regional office, we always say that the Philippines has always been the paragon or the standard benchmark setting for across countries in the Asia Pacific. But there are still gaps. For instance, the sexual corruption and sexual sextortion definitions. We also have a couple of advancements now. We just launched the EVO National Plan of Action. That's the first one, the policy frameworks. The second one is a clear emphasis on having really strong institutional mechanisms, and Yusek Emmy has emphasized a lot of the work in terms of bridging between legislation, executive, and also the justice systems. But we're also looking at safety and social safety nets at the same time, and having really robust reporting mechanisms that cuts across the different strategies. The third key area I would really want to emphasize, and I think our partners from media have also emphasized, is the need to really have actively resourcing the needs of the people or the women on the ground. So I think the emphasis on the solo program, looking at cash for care as an innovative mechanism, really strengthen the resourcing. And a lot of the emerging, resilient livelihoods is one of the things that we're looking at now, because we've managed to have 5-6 typhoons in a month. And the need to really strengthen that resourcing on the ground to build resilience and address underlying vulnerabilities is critical. The fourth area is on accountability, and we really emphasize this. We do have government agencies that are non-compliant, but at the same time, there are mechanisms that are put in place to really make sure that they deliver. But of course, we need evidence. And evidence with that comes with data. So gender data is one of the things that we really have to put in place. And I know PSA is working, so we are closely actually working with PCW, CCC, PSA to really try to derive gender data. So a lot of the data is there. Of course, there's still data gaps, but trying to harness that data and see what the gendered gaps are is one of the things that we have to focus on to ensure accountability and monitoring of the results. And yes, results-based na tayo ngayon, hindi na pwede na training delivered or number of people reached.
So the fifth one, and it was mentioned firstly by Yusek Emmy, is the need to really shift culture. Lahat to, mula sa poverty, mula sa addressing economic issues, naka-embed pa rin to sa pwede nating ma-achieve ang mga yun ang mga babae ay nasa huli pa rin. So creating that social shift in social cultural norms is something that we really have to strengthen, at katrabaho dapat talaga natin ang mga grassroots na mga kababaihan on the ground. So having said that, meron tayong 6 key priorities. So ano na tayo ngayon? So the Beijing Regional Consultation just finished. And the CSW, the Commission on the Status of Women, which is basically what Chair Ermi was saying, is the larger convening across all the member states in the world, will be happening in March. The difference between this year, because it is the Beijing year, is that there will be negotiations happening before CSW 69, which is happening in March. So the agreed conclusions will be published before or during the first day of CSW 69. What I am trying to say is that we, as the Philippines, we would have to really engage strongly with other member states, because last year, the theme of CSW 68 was investing in women. We said there that we need at least 230 billion per year to advance gender equality. The challenge of gender equality is not just in the country. Of course, operationalization is in the country, but it's one of the biggest challenges that we have globally, and we as the Philippines have to really work closely with other countries to deliver on the Beijing commitments. The last thing I want to say maybe is that, of course, I'm UN Women, but I also stand in front of you as part of the UN agencies. Gender equality as well as human rights and leave no one behind are the key principles that we uphold. And it's not just the mandate of UN Women. So Chair, ASIC, and Justice, and all our partners from the government, I can definitely say that you can rely on the UN system to support you in advancing the different goals. So maraming salamat po at mabuhay ang kababaihan ng Pilipinas.
Thank you very much, Athena, for your closing remarks, and being, of course, to UN Women for being our strong partner and providing lunch for this afternoon. So thank you very much for your participation, colleagues. Before we close the session, maybe we can invite the Philippine delegate members to have a group photo in front. Ayan.